Liam and I had been planning this trip for months. Just the two of us. No girlfriends, no responsibilities. Just a long overdue weekend to disconnect from everything. We picked the cheapest cabin we could find, tucked at the edge of a dense forest by some forgotten northern lake. Fishing, drinks, maybe a little weed. It was the kind of lazy, aimless break we both pretended we didn't desperately need. I had just quit my job from sheer burnout, and Liam's engagement had fallen apart 2 weeks before the wedding. We didn't talk about either of those things. The next morning, I woke up early, unable to sleep, and Liam followed me down to the dark kitchen. Eyes blurry, both of us clutching mugs of awful instant coffee. That's when we saw it. Across the water, barely visible through the thick fog. A house, a full-on house. 2 stories, pale siding, a sharp roof, perfectly symmetrical, and definitely not there yesterday. Maybe we were too hungover to notice, Liam said. Maybe someone built it overnight, I joked, but the chill running down my spine didn't match my tone. We watched it for a while. It didn't move, flicker, or fade. It just sat there, still waiting. No dock, no path leading to it. Just there. Eventually, curiosity got the better of us. We climbed into the old metal rowboat the cabin provided, creaking with every pull. The lake was unnervingly calm. The water's surface didn't ripple. Even the fog seemed deliberate, as if it was hiding something. As I rowed, I thought maybe we're about to ruin someone's very private weekend. The fog parted like a curtain as we approached. The house sat dead center on the water. No docks, no stilts, no visible support. A 2-story colonial-style house, perfectly poised above its reflection, as if it had been cut and pasted into the world without explanation. Liam was the first to say it. No foundation. I nodded. No reason it should even be standing. We circled it in the boat, but there was no clear entry, just still water and a low whisper of wind. Then, miraculously, we spotted a flat wooden platform hidden beneath the water in front of the porch steps, just wide enough to climb onto. We tied off and stepped onto it. Solid, silent, impossible. The front door opened with the first twist of the knob, and warmth hit me instantly. Not just temperature, something deeper. It felt like a loved home, like someone had been expecting us. Lamps glowed in every room, soft orange light washing over clean furniture and polished hardwood. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, even though no chimney was visible outside. The smell of fresh bread hung in the air. The dining table was set for 2, full plates ready. Roast chicken, vegetables, mashed potatoes, still steaming as if freshly cooked. Our stomachs growled in unison, but neither of us dared touch anything. Maybe this is one of those weird Airbnb themes, Liam said, his voice uncertain. I was too stunned to respond. The place was breathtaking, leagues above the glorified shed we had rented. We moved quietly from room to room. Every bed was made, closets full of neatly folded clothes, neutral, unlabeled. Framed photos hung along the hallways, faces impossible to make out, smudged or mid-motion, familiar yet alien. The kitchen was fully stocked, fridge cold and humming, cabinets filled with dry goods, even a fruit bowl on the counter, apples flawless and shiny. We stood in the living room, enveloped in silence and comfort. This place is a mile better than our cabin, Liam said. No mold, no rotting wood, no smell of a raccoon dead under the floorboards. I added. We laughed, but the feeling that we didn't belong crept over us. This was someone's home, and we were walking through it like a public space. We didn't stay long. The air inside the house seemed to numb time itself, as if the world outside the walls had ceased to exist. When I checked my watch, nearly 2 hours had passed, and the food hadn't cooled. Liam whistled low. "All right, enough ghost real estate. Let's head back before dark." "Yeah," I said, though my voice sounded hollow even to me. I didn't want to admit how the house made me feel strangely safe, almost hypnotically, like leaving would be a mistake. Liam was already at the door. "You coming?" he called. "Yeah, right behind you." He stepped out first, boots thumping lightly on the wooden platform. The sound was grounding, real. I followed, and hit something that wasn't there. The air had solidified, not like wind or resistance. It was like walking straight into glass. My whole body jolted backward. My breath caught in my throat. What the hell? I pressed my hands forward again. Nothing. Completely nothing. The door frame stood open right in front of me, but I couldn't cross it. Felt as if the house itself was pushing back. "Matt?" Liam's voice floated through the fog, muffled. I struck the invisible barrier again, harder. "I can't get out." "What are you talking about?" "I can't get out." And then everything changed. Every light inside the house died at once. The warmth bled away. The fire hissed out mid-crackle. The sudden silence was unbearable. My own breathing filled the room, loud and sharp. Moonlight filtered through the windows in thin silver ribbons, illuminating specks of dust that hadn't been there moments before. "Liam," my voice was small. No answer. Just the distant, rhythmic lap of water against the foundation, sounding closer than it should. "Liam!" I shouted, panic clawing at me. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Footsteps thudded across the porch. Then the door swung wide. Light poured in around him as if someone had flipped a switch. The fire roared back to life. The air warmed. Everything was normal. Liam stood there, eyebrows raised. "What the hell's your problem?" I stumbled forward, gripping the frame. I couldn't leave the air, it held me. I stopped, realizing how insane I sounded. He looked past me at the bright, cozy room. "You sure you didn't just freak yourself out? Man, you've been jumpy since we got here." "I'm serious," I said, shaking my head. It was like hitting a wall. He chuckled uneasily, clapping my shoulder. "Yeah, a spooky invisible wall in the middle of a magic lake. Maybe you're tripping on the edibles." "Huh?" But even as he laughed, I caught it. The way his eyes darted toward the open door behind him, then back to me. He didn't say it out loud, but I knew he felt it too. The air outside was heavy, oppressive, that kind of stillness that waits. We tested it again, thinking it might be a fluke or a sensory trick or just extreme exhaustion. But no, every time we tried leaving together, shoulder to shoulder, we hit it. An invisible wall, solid, unyielding, vacuum-sealed. No resistance, no sound, just nothing. The first time it happened to both of us at once, we looked at each other and said nothing. We simply backed into the house. We tried splitting up again. I went first, made it to the porch. Liam followed and hit the wall. The moment I crossed the threshold, the lights flicked back on, warm, inviting, normal. We switched, he went out fine, I followed, blocked again. It became clear, you could leave, but only if someone stayed behind. One must remain. I didn't know how the house enforced this, but it did every single time, no matter how we tried to cheat it. Eventually, we gave up and sat in the living room, surrounded by ticking clocks and perfectly arranged furniture. The fireplace crackled but never burned down. The food on the table stayed warm, never cooled. Everything waited. Liam spoke first. "I'll go," he said. "I'll get help. Fast." I didn't like it, but he was already walking toward the door. The moment he crossed the threshold, the light didn't just fade. it curdled. Warm gold drained into thin gray moonlight, coating everything like dust. The fire died without smoke. The smell of bread turned metallic and old. The temperature dropped 5 degrees and kept falling. I tried the lamps. Nothing. Switches clicked. Bulbs stayed dead. I tried the lighter from the kitchen drawer. Nothing sparked. So I started walking. At first, everything looked the same, but decay had begun to infect the house. Pristine wooden ornaments peeled and flaked into husks, only resembling their former selves. I opened a door that should have led to the hallway and found a narrow, pitch-black staircase. I didn't go down. I closed the door, took a breath, opened it again. The hallway was back. I stood there listening. The sounds came slowly, like the house had been holding its breath and finally exhaled. Soft creaks, then the hum of something shifting, almost organic, like bones realigning inside the walls. Movement flickered at the edges of my vision. Shadows passed behind doors I hadn't opened. Something crawled along the ceiling fast enough to make me question if I'd actually seen it. Corners that should have led to the kitchen brought me back to the foyer. Doors led to wrong places. Windows showed only fog. Finally, I gave up mapping it. I picked a small guest bedroom I hadn't seen before and shut the door behind me. Bitter cold. I climbed into bed fully dressed, clutching the thick covers to my chin. I heard breathing, not mine. Slow, deep, rasping somewhere in the walls. Scratching too. Nails or claws dragging, pacing. Something brushed my legs under the covers. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just waited. Silence followed, so complete it buzzed in my ears. I don't remember falling asleep. Must have passed out from exhaustion. I woke hours later, cramped, teeth chattering, heart pounding like I hadn't slept at all. The room was darker than before. The door I had come through was gone. On the other side of the room, I stretched, ready to look around, and felt my stomach curl. I was starving, not just hungry. It felt as if something had hollowed me out during the night, reaching inside and scooping away more than hunger. The lights were still dead. The fireplace was nothing but a bed of cold ash. The food that once waited on the table was gone, not spoiled or touched, simply missing, like it had never been real to begin with. I tried the taps. Nothing, no hiss, no drip, just a suffocating silence. The windows still showed the lake outside, but wrapped in a thick, unmoving fog. The sky hung in a permanent dusk, the moon frozen low above the horizon, neither rising nor falling. The shadows stretched long and thin, never shifting. At first, I thought a day had passed, then 2, then more. But soon I wasn't sure time was moving at all. I started tracking it. I carved tallies into the kitchen table with a steak knife each time I slept. 5 marks, maybe 6. One of them was new, sharper, deeper, but I didn't remember carving it. The house no longer allowed me to rest. Every time I shut my eyes, I felt it watching. Not from the darkness, from everywhere. The walls felt like skin, the beams like ribs, the floorboards like a breathing spine beneath my feet. I could smell it too, a sweet, wet rot that seeped from the grain of the wood, even when I pressed a pillow over my face. At first I stayed in one room, then I moved, trying to outrun whatever haunted me. But the layout shifted like a maze with a pulse. Doors opened into dead ends. Staircases twisted into wrong places. Mirrors reflected rooms that weren't mine, versions the house was only guessing at. Worst were the times I didn't remember entering a room. I'd blink and be in a crawl space, hands scraped bloody as if I'd been clawing to get out. Once, I woke curled inside a closet around clothes that weren't mine. The thing behaved differently when I was exhausted. It didn't slam or scream. It stalked. Sometimes I heard slow footsteps just outside a door, pausing too long, listening. Once, a shape slid across the hallway floor, flat and dragging itself within human limbs. I locked the door. That night it tapped gently, patiently, for hours. One morning I found muddy footprints in the kitchen. Small, bare, childlike. They circled the room before stopping at the edge of my bed. I never heard it enter. I never saw it, but it had stood inches from me while I slept. Eventually, I lost track of days. The early tally marks were straight, deliberate, but the sky outside never changed. A silver half-light that clung to the world like a bruise. I kept carving until I wasn't sure if I was sleeping at all. Sometimes I scratched marks into the walls just to feel something, but the scratches faded whenever I looked away. Once they returned higher, too high for me to reach. The house was keeping its own count. I hadn't eaten in what felt like weeks. My stomach twisted constantly, gnawing at itself. No food, no water, yet I didn't die. My body fell apart. Dry mouth, split lips, dizziness, but every time I woke, I was alive again. It wasn't mercy, it was controlled cruelty. The first time it touched me, I tried convincing myself it was imagination. A cold brush at the back of my neck, then fingers around my ankle beneath the bed. Later, a hand gripped my arm as I slept, hard enough to leave deep bruises. But when I looked into the mirror, no one stood behind me. The breathing grew louder at night, no longer through walls. It came from my pillow. Then I saw it, a figure in the kitchen doorway, perfectly still, watching. No face, just the impression of one, like someone had pressed the idea of a face into wet clay. A dent where a mouth should be, a shimmer of breath where eyes might blink. Sanity felt like a memory. Then finally it cornered me. I was running toward the staircase that used to lead to the bedroom. It ended suddenly at a wall. When I turned, it was there. It didn't rush me. It raised one hand and pointed. The ceiling bent toward it, gravity warping around its presence. I pressed myself into the corner, whispering anything. My name, prayers, apologies. The air froze. My breath crystallized. It stepped closer, fingers stretching toward my chest, and the lights snapped on. Warm, blinding. The fire roared. The smell of baking bread flooded the air. Collapsed, sobbing. Then I heard him. Hey! I looked up. Liam stood in the doorway, framed by warm light like nothing had ever been wrong. He was grinning, panting, as if he'd just run up the porch. Dude, he said, you were right. I couldn't speak. My throat felt flayed raw. He helped me up, confused and pale. What happened to you? I was gone maybe 2 hours. I called the cabin guy. He said there's no house on the lake. Thought I was messing with him. 2 hours. I croaked. Yeah, left just after noon. It's not even 3. I looked at the fireplace, the steaming plates, the perfect warmth. I had carved 30 marks, maybe more. I had lived a lifetime in here, but he claimed 2 hours. I didn't argue. I just whispered, I need to get out, just for a little bit. His face tightened. But you said we couldn't both leave. That's not it. I lied. We can leave, just not together. One of us has to stay. He hesitated. So, if I stay, you're fine? I nodded. Too quickly. He agreed. I walked out without looking back. Halfway across the lake, I turned. The warm glow inside the house was gone. Stood dark, dead, waiting. The windows empty black squares. He was trapped now, and I had let it happen. Back at the cabin, everything felt wrong. Too loud, too alive. I ate but tasted nothing. I stared at the lake for hours, waiting for lights to return. They didn't. I went to the dock many times, hand on the rope, ready to return. But I didn't move. I stood frozen, bargaining with myself, telling myself maybe he was fine. Maybe it only haunted me. Maybe he'd escape on his own. Eventually, I began lying to myself. He'd understand, I told myself. He knew what I experienced. And because he knew if we switched again, he wouldn't leave me behind. He'd save himself. So maybe this wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was survival. Dusk settled when I finally packed. Just some clothes, my phone. At the door I paused, looked back at the cabin, at the lake, at the place where the house waited in stillness. I whispered, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure who it was for. Then I left,